All right, everyone, welcome back to part two with Siobhan Harris. Last episode, if you were listening, we talked all about her story through sugar addiction and how she overcame that. She went sugar and flour free. She's almost at 5 years. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, so amazing. We talked about intuitive eating. So if you haven't heard that episode, make sure you go back and listen to that one because it was awesome. Such a great conversation. So many good tips in there, even for kids. So let's now start talking about you have done work. You said that a lot of emotions and different things started to come up as you made this transition and started living without sugar. And I imagine that so many of us use sugar and food and carbs and as a method of coping and dealing with our emotions. And when you don't have that anymore, you're just sitting there with your emotions like, what the heck do I do with these? How do I get rid of them? Right? Because we don't want to feel discomfort as humans. So we naturally look to kind of avoid them. So tell us about that journey for you, what that was like, how it started coming up, and a little bit more about this work with the emotion and the body code that you do.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It's so overwhelming to feel emotions for the first time when food has been your coping mechanism your whole life, basically. So that's kind of what I was finding. And I really believe this truly, and this is why I do, my group coaching is 10 weeks long, because the first part is just getting off the sugar and the flour or your trigger foods, whatever that is for you. As we talked in the last episode, that can be also include nuts or corn or certain types of fruit. I was going to say that too. Like I can't eat bananas, but I can eat berries, so there's all these little nuances that you have to figure out. That's part one. And that takes some experimentation and patience and self-compassion. And as you figure that out, but then step two, I really feel like is the bigger, that's where most everything is. That's like the healing part of really reconnecting with yourself and discovering yourself again and getting back in touch with these emotions that you might have been stuffing down your entire life. And that really happened for me pretty quickly on, where I was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like feeling uncomfortable. Like this is so uncomfortable feeling uncomfortable. I mean, it really like hit me hard. And it's so funny. My gut instinct was, I need something to eat. And I'm like, I can't do that anymore. So it really, like, I was kind of in this panic state for a little bit. And I do find not everybody's like this, but a lot of the clients I've worked with experience the same thing. So I totally get it because I was one of those people. And about a year into my journey, I had a friend that was telling me about emotion code. And right away, just listening to it, she's like, oh yeah, it's a way to release trapped emotions that get stuck in the body. It's basically like just clearing up your emotional baggage. I was like, yes, I need this. So I wish I'd found it sooner in my journey. I do think it would have helped me kind of get to that place of calm a little faster. Although, I don't regret anything. It's all part of my journey. But I think if I had this tool earlier, I would have been able to kind of unpack some stuff that took me longer to do. So I started working with this, my own emotion code practitioner. And right away, just found it just to be, again, like I call it a tool, such a powerful tool. And I really believe for that second part of your journey, you have to like kind of make your own toolkit. And it's going to be a bunch of different things. So a lot on my podcast, I talk about different tools and other people share tools that they use. Again, this looks different for everybody. And whatever that is, like there's a lot of stuff that I have to do to stay strong in my recovery every day. But the emotion code body code is a really significant part of that. So the emotion code was created by Dr. Bradley Nelson, who's retired now, but was a chiropractor. And he found that, say, like 85% of his patients were getting better with like regular chiropractic care, adjustments, all that stuff. And it was really driving him nuts, though, like these 15% of people that weren't getting better. And so he started really looking into like energy work and healing and the quantum physics of all of it, and really decided to add this emotional component. So he created what's called the emotion code chart. It's like 60 different emotions that he found were the most commonly trapped. And those get stuck in the body when you can't process them. And then over time, that can cause, feelings. It can cause emotional stress. It can cause physical stress. A lot of people, and there's a lot of research that will say that all disease, cancer, anything chronic condition like that, that there is an emotional piece underneath of it all that's just kind of stuck. And again, as adults, Dr. Brad also says, like, most adults have over 400 trapped emotions. Like, there's just no way to process them all. But especially in our, culture, we're not taught how to process things. I mean, how many times did you hear of it as a kid? Like, suck it up, or walk it off, don't cry, that kind of stuff. Like, so Hive, for one, was one that just shoved so much stuff down and then really ate about it to kind of numb out from feeling these really big, big things. So with the emotion code, you use muscle testing, which again, I had no idea what that was until I went to a naturopath for the PCOS. And she used muscle testing to see which supplements would help my body the most. And that's kind of how I first learned about it, but it's used in a lot of Eastern cultures and stuff as a way to communicate with the subconscious mind, a yes or no answer. And it's really good for things like supplements, or I'll do it a lot with just out of curiosity with food. Can I eat this food? And I'll get a pretty strong yes or no, if anything with sugar, my body's like, no. I mean, it's almost like screaming at me. It's really funny. So it's kind of a fun tool to learn how to muscle test, and you can do it on yourself. So I recommend for people just to Google muscle testing. I mean, there are so many YouTube videos out there. You can also go to Dr. Brad's website, which is discoverhealing.com, because he, during COVID, put up some really good informational videos that can probably explain it in a much higher detail and level than I'm going to do today. So if you are one of those people that really want to know the science behind it and all the details, he has some really, really good videos available, especially to kind of explain the quantum physics that's involved. For me, I'm one of those people that I just want to experience it. I don't have to understand it. If I know if it works for me, then I'm a big, believer. And so for me, my very first session actually was in person with someone here in Portland who's also a chiropractor and does it, or an acupuncturist, and she does it with her acupuncture. So the very first time I had it done in person, and then I did a phone session with her. And then I switched to my friend's practitioner who lives in Texas, and we just did it over the phone. So that's another thing that I want to say that's amazing to me about energy work is you don't have to be in person. It felt exactly the same when I had it in person versus over the phone. So that to me is also really amazing. So with muscle testing though, if I was doing a session on you, once I have your permission to work on you, I can muscle test on myself, but kind of using your body to get yes or no answers. So that's kind of how it works. And I'll just ask, what's something that you want to work on today, for example? And you might say, I'm just having really bad pain in my neck. So I can ask, is there an emotion that's contributing to this neck pain? And I'll get a yes or no. And if it's a yes, then we can find out, which emotion it is. And what's really cool is we can find out what age it's from if it's not something that's going on currently. A lot of times it's stuff that you're feeling currently, but a lot of times it's not. So I can muscle test and find the approximate year, like within a year usually, but I find it to be pretty accurate for people when they're going through it. And that's a lot of response. I'm like, how could you possibly know that? I'm like, I don't, it's your body that knows it. So for instance, maybe you have a trapped emotion of discouragement from age 16, and the great thing too is you might not remember in the moment what that's about, but your subconscious mind does, and it's still going to clear it. I do recommend, because I like to do it this way, I like to write down everything I do in a session. So when I have a session, I write down every emotion that was cleared, what age, And if I can't remember, I like to go back and be like, think about it a day or two later. And a lot of times I'm like, oh yeah. Or I have to look up the year. Like I don't remember the age, but I might remember the year. Again, you don't have to do that. That's really the beauty of this. It's still going to clear. You're still going to get the benefit. But for some people, I think that they enjoy that processing. I have a lot of people that like to journal about stuff that comes up. It also works really well with therapy. Like a lot of my clients also are in therapy, and then they say it's nice, like in therapy, they feel like they almost talk. But with emotion code, you can talk, but really it's about identifying and clearing. So there's actually a release too. So that's what I really, really love about it. So we'll find, again, if it's not something current, we'll find out like what age that it's approximately going on for you. And then the other types of emotions that can come up is something that's absorbed, like an absorbed emotion. And for me, this happens to me a lot because I'm an empath. So I just naturally absorb a lot from people around me. Even if you're not an empath, if you're around something they're feeling something really strongly, and it's not necessarily towards you. It's usually not towards you at all. It's just something that they're feeling in the moment that can then get trapped and absorbed by you. And the cool thing is if you release it from you, it will release from that person as well. So I feel like it's a kind of a way to like pass it on. I have a client, for instance, that she was absorbing a lot from her husband, and we cleared all this stuff. And the next session, when I talked to her, she's like, my husband is like a changed person. So it was really cool to see how much it benefited him. And we weren't even working on him directly, you know?
That's amazing.
And then the other type of emotion that can come up is inherited. And I love these too. So if something's inherited, it's either from your mom's side or your dad's side, which we can muscle test and find out. And then we can find out, did they inherit it? Yep, from their mom or their dad. And how many generations does this go back? So it can go back generations and generations. And this to me is where you can get a lot of good kind of family healing, right? Anything that's kind of ancestral or the generations passed down. It just is a really beautiful clearing through the family line. So it will clear from you and everyone like in front of you and behind you. So if you have kids and they have kids, it'd be from your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, sisters, brothers, but then even anyone that like say, you know, even if it goes back 10 generations, I still like to believe that those spirits are getting some relief and some healing, you know, even for those people that are no longer with us. So the inherited stuff is really, really cool. Again, I feel like such a gift to families. Like I always tease, I have a brother and sister. So I was clearing some stuff and it was a lot of inherited things coming up. And I was like, you're welcome. I just cleared all this stuff for you too. Or I like thinking that it's a way to clear things for my kids as well, you know? So that's like kind of basic overview of the emotion code. And it's, you know, usually I do about 30-minute sessions. You can book a 45-minute or an hour session. I do have some people that they like me to work on like their kids or animals. It works really well for pets. So they might book a full hour. And a lot of times when it's a first session too, people want a little bit extra time. But for the most part, I find that 30 minutes is just right. Your body is only going to clear as much as it is going to be good for you too. So that's the other thing I like. It's never going to clear like too much that you can't process. And I would say most people after like a 30-minute session will work on like 1 to 3 things at a time. And most people afterwards feel at least a little lighter. And then, you know, we always muscle test at the end to see how long you should wait for another session. It's usually somewhere between 1 week to 4 weeks. And most people, I would say, need more than one session, you know, depending on what it is. And then when you really start digging in, you know, healing, it's like an onion. It's layer after layer after layer. So for me, even though I've been doing this for a few years now, I work on myself, but I still have my practitioner work on me every 2 weeks, just for like a little, you know, tune-up clearing. So I have found it to be so beneficial. I went to a workshop with Dr. Brad in person, which was amazing, right before COVID. And from that, I was able to start doing it on myself and like family. But I saw so many benefits from that I decided to go and get certified, which is an online certification program. And because I wanted to start incorporating this with my group coaching and now I have also, I mean, I do it with my coaching, but also I have many clients that aren't addicts or sugar addicts or anything that just need a motion code. So I have found it to be one of the most rewarding things that I have ever done. And it's just amazing to me to see the benefits that people experience from just clearing up some of this emotional baggage. I mean, whether it's health stuff, or if it's just, feeling a lot of stress and overwhelm, insomnia. I mean, you can pretty much emotion code about anything. I have a really good friend that does essential oils, and she'll always say, there's an oil for that. And I'm like, there's an emotion code for that. It's kind of the same thing. Like, it's so crazy to me. It could be, I'm too afraid to ask for a raise at work, or I have blocks to abundance, or I'm not clear on this decision I need to make, or I'm having a hard time communicating with my daughter. I mean, it can be used in so many different ways. I really like when it's a physical thing like neck pain, or recently I had someone that was really struggling with hip pain, and after one session it was gone. That's not always the case, but it's so nice when it's kind of instant gratification like that. Sometimes it's more subtle, and just like anything, everyone kind of processes energy work differently, so it can look a little different for everybody. But I try to recommend, like, I do a 3-package set, like a 3-session package. And I find that for most people, they'll really feel some big shifts after 3 sessions.
That's awesome. I actually had someone today, she was on a discovery call and learning about my program. And she said, do you work with emotions that are stored in the body in your program? And I said, no, but I'm actually interviewing someone who does do that work in like an hour. So it was so funny that she asked me that. And so when these emotions are stored in our body, I sort of forgot to connect it to the health part and the blood sugar part, but it has a very important relevance to that as well. So as you said, that when people release these stored emotions in their body, they get improvements in their health, they feel less stress, they feel less overwhelm, and they can sleep better. Those are just some of the benefits. And those things, like feeling less stress and sleeping better, directly improve our blood sugar, because we know that if we're chronically activating the sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight, we're elevating glucose, we're wearing out our adrenals. We know that just one night of poor sleep is going to increase our insulin resistance the following day. So all of these emotions are actually, could it be like, even if we don't know that we're feeling them, like they're just stored in our body, can they still be affecting us?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Most of the times I'd say we aren't aware. One of the biggest things that I love the most helping people with is a concept called the heart wall. And that's like kind of what it sounds like.
I had a heart wall.
Yes. Yes. And most adults, again, do. It's like you go through at some point, some kind of traumatic event, or that your body perceives as traumatic. So your subconscious mind puts up a wall of trapped emotions around your heart, basically to protect you from completely falling apart. So in the time you need it, it's good. But after time has passed, you then have this heart wall. It can sometimes be feet, 30 feet big. And it's really disconnecting you, not just from yourself, but from other people, from abundance, from so many things. And I have so many people that have said, I just feel like I'm on the outside looking in, or just having a hard time connecting with their partners or with other people. And once we eliminate that heart wall, it's like game on for people. It's like that light inside of them turns back on. Because a lot of times I just think, even that disconnection from yourself. And for me, I'll give an example that I'll share with my heart wall was from age 19. So we can also find out what age it's from. Again, if you can't remember why, what happened at age 19, it doesn't matter. Your body knows. And then we can find out how big it is. I'll say, can we measure it in inches or feet? It doesn't really matter how big it is. It's not like 3 emotions per inch. It doesn't like correlate anyway like that. Sometimes you could clear one emotion out of it and it will drop feet. So it doesn't matter. To me, it's just a nice visual to have for you. Oh my gosh, I have a 10-foot wall up in front of me. No wonder I'm not connecting with people, right? It's just like a nice, and then to feel, oh, I'm down to 6 feet, 4 feet. And then, it just, I like to have that visual, but it doesn't really matter. So for me, it was age 19, but right away I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense because I had my first boyfriend, my first love, first everything break up with me. My parents got divorced. And I had a really good friend die in a car accident, all within 3 months of each other. So, and this is my freshman year of college too. So all of that happening your freshman, when already that's a huge change. And I remember my roommate was like, I don't even know how you're getting up in the morning. Like, I don't know how you're even functioning right now. And to me, that makes total sense. I had that heart wall in place because I was really, really, trying to keep it together. And once I cleared it, for me, one of the biggest benefits I found was my neck and shoulder pain. I had really chronic, like just tight neck, shoulders, massages, nothing really seemed to help it. That's like 100% better now. Like I still get like normal people tension there, but not the pain that I was experiencing before. So a lot of people report even physical discomfort with a heart wall as well. So I just think it's really kind of fascinating. And that's some of the best testimonials that I've gotten is from people that we've cleared heart walls. I have one client that I always like to share, and I have her testimonial available on my website, but she is someone that I've been working on for a while, and she's pretty quiet. Like some clients are really chatty. Some people are just like, just don't really talk at all. So I don't always get the feedback of knowing, oh, is this really helping? Where some people are like, it's amazing. She was one that is pretty quiet, but after we cleared her heart wall, in a session, we had our next session. I was like, well, how are you feeling, since we cleared your heart wall? And she was like, oh my gosh, Siobhan, like, I am like a new person. She's like, my husband wants to just thank you because, they've been together like 19 years. And she just said the level of intimacy and reconnect that they were feeling now that her heart wall was done was like the closest they've ever felt ever. To the point where like her husband's like, what is happening? Like, this is amazing. So it was just so cool to get that kind of, feedback and how the impact that especially removing this heart wall can have on people. And sometimes, again, it might be more subtle, but most people feel some kind of, benefit from this.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And so what's the difference between the emotion code and the body code? Because I know you
So
do
the
both of
body
those.
code's like kind of the second part then. So the emotion again is, and you can look up Google emotion code chart. You can get it for free. This is the other thing I just want to point out. You can buy the book, The Emotion Code, or you can go on his website and look at the videos, and you can do it on yourself. Just start practicing on yourself. That's what I did until I got confident. You don't have to go to a practitioner. I just started working, with a practitioner, then started working on myself. And just practice the muscle testing part. There's different ways to do it. So again, experiment and see how you like that. But it's really cool because you can just work on yourself. The chart's available and you can start clearing out emotions. And I love using it with my kids. Again, I know I'm getting off track here, but we were talking before about how like most of us aren't given any kind of like way to express emotions as kids. A lot of times we're like kind of like just bottle it up and be quiet. I'm really trying not to do that with my kids. Although again, I'm human. There's so many times and I'm like, please stop crying. Like for the love of God, why are you crying? Because it's about something so ridiculous. But most of the time, I'm really trying to give them space to feel it because emotions are energy in motion. So we have to let them, release. And with the emotion code, this is like, I love it as a parent when one of the kids is having a meltdown, which is, pretty much every day. And they're like, Mommy, I really think I need some emotion code. And I'm like, yay. Like, it makes me so happy.
That is so cute.
I know. So, and then we'll go through like, oh, you've got defensiveness. And they'll be like, well, what does that mean? And I'll give them an example. Like, you might feel defensive. And they're like, oh, well, I did feel defensive at school today when blah, blah, blah. So it's giving them like the emotional vocabulary too, that so many of us never were given, right? Or even just to be aware of all these emotions that aren't just sad, mad, happy. Like, this is so many, different emotions that, again, it's that we don't have a definition for, or like you were saying, might not even know that we were feeling, because we were never really taught how to even know what they were. So I love using this with the kids. And a lot of times I work on them when they're sleeping anyway, but then it's also really useful to work with them in person so that they can, again, get that language around, oh yeah, rejection. Yeah, I did feel rejected when she didn't ask me to play with her today or whatever. And it's just like then a really good conversation. And then it's also like, okay, yeah, let's clear that emotion out now. And we usually like take a deep breath in, a deep breath out. So it just is a really good tool, I think, for kids too. And honestly, let's face it, for adults, of just identifying an emotion that we are feeling. So with the body code though,
can I stop you there for 1 second?
Okay.
Because I just wanted to comment on what you said. So I love that you're giving your kids that emotional vocabulary. Brene Brown just wrote the book, Atlas of the Heart. Not sure if you're a Brene Brown fan and you saw that, but she talks about how important it is to give the vocabulary and give us language for what we're feeling, because it allows us to process and understand what's happening much better. So then we can actually clear those things or can talk about it in the right way. But I find that in my own therapy sessions, I feel that I'm really disconnected from my emotions. I grew up in a home where there wasn't a lot of emotions that were expressed. And many of us find that, wow, the only emotions that were sort of okay, and maybe it wasn't really directly said, but you would know, like, you were allowed to be happy, you were allowed to be content. You might be allowed to be mad at someone if you were wronged. And sadness, kind of maybe deal with that on your own. Like, it's okay. Let's make it better because this is uncomfortable for everyone to feel. So really, emotions weren't really allowed in my home. And that sort of disconnects a person from the ability to feel all this granularity of emotions other than just like happy, sad, mad, excited, And so when I am in therapy, my therapist will share her screen because it's virtual and pull up this emotions wheel. And she'll be like, okay, what are you feeling? And so I'm like hunting on the wheel for like, what am I feeling? So as adults, I'm sure I'm not the only one. A lot of my friends, I shared the emotion wheel in my group coaching. People are like, oh, I want to see that too. Like, we're all not very familiar with what we're feeling. So I love that idea of increasing our vocabulary of our emotions, getting us in touch with just how it's important to feel how food makes us feel. Well, what does certain situations make us feel like? Can we feel where that is in our body and be able to name those emotions? And I think for a lot of us, we struggle with that. I for sure struggle with that kind of stuff. So I love that. And I'm happy you brought that up.
I think most adults honestly are in that same boat as you are, because we weren't, it's like anger is one that I find is really, people are so uncomfortable with experience, like feeling anger and then holding space for someone that has
I
anger.
will just say, I'm not mad. I'm just frustrated. That's like my biggest thing to say. I'm just frustrated. Frustration is anger. Like,
exactly.
It's on that same branch, but I'm too afraid to say that I almost never say I'm angry. I almost never identify with feeling angry unless maybe very rarely. It's usually just frustration. It's cloaked in a gentler way that's more acceptable, right?
And I think especially as women, we're told to kind of act and feel only a certain way. So that's a whole other thing. But I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I just know, anger is one that's really hard, but it's really important to feel, because that can be such a big catalyst for change. I'll scream into a pillow sometimes, and I'm trying to teach my kids how to do that too, that all emotions are welcome. all behaviors aren't welcome, but all emotions are welcome. And really kind of being able to identify, and then also realize it's okay to feel them, because they're going to go away. Just like we finally learned with cravings will go away, so do feelings. You might feel angry for a while, but it will dissipate and go away. And that's something I really had to learn, was just to kind of sit with these difficult emotions, feel them, like you're kind of saying, like, oh, I'm feeling angry. Okay, what's going on? And looking at it with curiosity, like, I'm feeling angry. Like, what's making me angry? And giving it a little compassion. Like, I almost imagine giving it a little hug, like, oh, thanks, anger, for letting me know. And then it can release, because it kind of got that attention. And then the more we can do that, obviously, the less that's going to get trapped inside our body. But yeah, I do think most adults do not have that emotional vocabulary at all. And again, like you're saying, you have to look at the wheel, like, yeah, what am I even feeling? I don't even know. I love Brene Brown. I haven't read that book yet, but I definitely want to. And I hope, again, that the world's changing, and, people are, working with their kids and trying to do, we're learning these things are more and more important, and trying to do things differently. Again, I'm not perfect, and no parent is perfect, but I do feel like there's so many more tools available, because we're really seeing how damaging that can be later in life. So I love this as a tool to use with kids, to really, again, give them that emotional vocabulary and just work through some things and be comfortable with feelings, and feeling even the uncomfortable feelings. And holding space. I think that's the biggest gift that we can give to people, not just as a parent, but to your friend, your partner, your siblings, whoever, is really just holding space when people are experiencing big emotions, instead of rushing to try to fix it. Or, I was thinking of when you said, like, as a kid, sometimes, oh, you're sad, you're crying, here, have an ice cream cone. Like, that will cheer you up. And again, that's where so many of those like behaviors are linked. Oh, I need to eat something, to feel better. Instead, let's just, feel it, and it will release. But that's something, again, most of us were not taught. So, and it's why most of us do have, as adults, have so many trapped emotions. So I've done emotion code probably for about a year of seeing clients after I got certified. And then, the next certification, you have to be certified in the emotion code first, but then you can do the body code. And I did just a virtual call, like, to hear what it was all about. And I was hooked. I was like, okay, let's add this. So I got certified in the body code as well. And that is so cool. It goes even deeper. Like, the emotion code is part of it. There's like 6 different areas. I'm just going to pull up my app, because it's like an app on your phone. So there's energy as one of the areas, and emotions are in that. There's circular systems. So that could be things like organs, glands, any kind of system in your body. It could be like something in your digestive system. It could be your colon. It could be in your respiratory system. It could be like your trachea, your nose. So many different things. And then there's toxins that come up. That could be food toxins. It's interesting on people. Just a lot of sugar and sugar alcohols, or, processed food. It could be environmental stuff though, or dental toxins, metals, all kinds of stuff that come up in the toxins category. And then there's pathogens, both physical and just like the energy of pathogens that your body hasn't been able to release. That could be like mold, a virus, bacteria, fungus, parasites. And then there's misalignments. And that could be stuff in your chakras. That could be stuff in your bones. Like, there's in your skull. It could be things in like soft tissues, like organs, gland, connective tissues. And then it also like encompasses the meridians, which is kind of the energy networks of the body that a lot of acupuncturists use those. So it could be any of our main meridians or our extraordinary meridians. And then the last category is nutrition or lifestyle. And that's stuff like hydration, sleep, nutrition. Sometimes it's like an oil that your body might want, something going on with the magnetic field. So all kinds of things. Like it basically encompasses like everything. And it's just so fascinating. I mean, I think emotion code is amazing enough, but as I started doing body code on people, again, a lot of the times I'm like, okay, this is so weird. I almost feel weird saying this out loud to this person. And like, I'll be like, okay, this is what's going, and they'll be like, oh yeah. Like, and it just resonates with them completely. You know, like one of the things I remember early on, this like poison came up and it was like venom. And it was saying it was like a spider. And I'm like, oh, and this woman, and again, I'm like, kind of like, I don't know, you know, it's a spider, you know, and she's like, oh yeah, she almost died from like a spider bite, like 20 years earlier. So it's always like crazy to me. And it was just like this energy still left in her body that had to clear out. So there are times that I'm almost hesitant to say what's coming up, but then I don't know why, because there's always, you know, I'm always surprised just at what, you know, clears for people and what resonates with people. So yeah, it's really an amazing, that's to me where I don't understand sometimes of how, you know, but your body knows. And it just talks so much about how smart our subconscious mind is, and, you know, how much our bodies really, really do want to be in balance. And so this is just another way of bringing our bodies back into balance so that we can heal ourselves, you know, and so we can, you know, take care of ourselves. I was struggling the last few days. So last night I did a body code session on myself, and it was like really long. I was like, good gracious, that's a lot going on. And one of the weird things that was happening for me was I was having really bad pain in my thumb, in my right thumb. And I'm like, that's just weird. Like, where it's even hard to like, and you don't realize how much you use your thumb. Like I'd be trying to open things. I'm like, oh, the thumb, what's going on? Well, one of the things that came up for me on the body code was my pancreas was out of alignment. And one of the symptoms is pain in your right thumb. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I clear that out. Today, my thumb, I mean, I can't make this stuff up. My thumb does not hurt today. It's
That's
just
wild.
so bizarre. So some of the things like that to me are just so weird, but so incredible. Even with the chakras, you know, when they're balanced, that feels a lot better. A lot of the organ stuff. And this is really good for physical things, right? You know, but a lot of times too, it's like someone like the person that had hip pain, the things that we were clearing, I felt like had nothing to do with the hip. So again, it's just like keeping the faith, but then the hip pain went away right away. I couldn't see how they correlated, but you know, it's just how our body is so interconnected in so many things. So it's really, really cool to use the body code. So what I do now is use a combination. So if you have a 30-minute session with me or 45-minute session, whatever, I'll muscle test and see what do we need to do first. And a lot of times we're doing both. I'm just, again, working with the body to see what it wants to do most of all. I do find that a lot of times when it's something physical going on, though, the body code can be really, really helpful, but there's always emotions there too. So it's usually a combination that we're using of both of them. So I love that, because now I've been doing both for over a year now. I got, I think, certified last summer in the body code, and it's just been amazing. Again, I thought emotion code was amazing, but just to see the changes in people that, you know, the body code does, it's just, like I said, it makes me excited to do the sessions every day.
That's awesome. Would it be possible to do a shorter, like quick sample session? So people like with me, so people might know what it's sort of like, because I hear it and I know I've done a session with you and I know what it's like, but you kind of have no idea what to expect. So would we be able to do that now?
Definitely. Yes.
Okay,
I know.
cool.
Yeah, it is it's just like it's one of those things you just have to do and experience for yourself, because it's really hard to explain. So
for sure.
And we'll see what do you want to focus on? That's what I would ask first. So what would you like to focus on?
So what are my options for focusing on? Because I don't really have any physical things at the moment.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be physical, just anything that's coming up for you, even if it's just you're feeling stressed or you're feeling whatever. It could be emotional, it could be.
Yeah, I had an argument, and I'm still feeling lingering emotions from that. And I'm not really quite sure what they are, but it feels a little bit heavy on my chest, like a lot
See,
of
that's
tightness.
perfect.
Okay.
That's like a perfect example of something to do. So
Okay.
we're gonna do the argument, and I'm just gonna give kind of, this is what I normally do in a session. I'd get 1 to 3 things, and then I just ask, like, let's just take like a deep breath just to get calm and centered. So just breathing in and out. And I'm just gonna set the intention that we clear whatever's for your highest and best today, whatever's gonna benefit you the most. Anything that we can do just around this argument and any lingering feelings that are there, any lingering energies that we can just clear out for you so that you can move on. And then I just always ask, are we divinely guided, shielded, protected in all good ways? Yes. And just offering up a prayer with love and gratitude. So then I say, is there an emotion that we can release for Danny around this argument? And actually, I'm getting that we can do the body code for this. So that's good. So who knows how the body code comes up on this, but that's good since that's the sample I think we kind of wanted to do. So I have my body code chart up and I just say, is there an imbalance that we can release for Danny today on the body code? Yes. So let's see. Okay. So a misalignment in one of your soft tissues. Okay. It's a gland in the brain, which doesn't, surprise me. It's your amygdala.
Oh yeah,
So
that's fear. Yeah,
this is related.
That. This is very related. This is very related already.
Okay, well, there you go. So the amygdala is what activates your pituitary gland, which activates the adrenal glands to produce stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which triggers the fight or fight response that we were talking about earlier. So it says common symptoms of imbalance may include anxiousness, easily startled, difficulty sleeping, high blood sugar, fast heart rate, and digestive problems. And I wanted to just go back to the high blood sugar. I was doing that continuous glucose monitor, and I had a really stressful situation, kind of like this, like an argument. And my blood, with not eating anything else, my blood sugar spiked like crazy. So yeah, just a really good example of how emotions do without even food can really spike your blood sugar. So I found that fascinating, the stuff that, Anyway, so then we ask, is there an associated imbalance that needs to be decoded? And I'm getting a yes. So before we can realign the amygdala, we dig a little bit deeper. And it's another misalignment coming up, and it's one of your chakras. Okay, and this is your sacral chakra. So that one's located between your belly button and genitals, and it's really associated with passion, creative energy, pleasure, and sexuality. So then we ask, is there an associated imbalance that needs to be decoded? And I'm getting a yes, and it's something in a circuit or system again, another gland, again in the brain, but this time it's your pituitary gland. And that one, it says, secretes hormones that regulate your body balance or homeostasis. It secretes hormones that influence other glands. It's vital in maintaining growth, regulating blood pressure. It controls your thyroid gland function, metabolism. It even controls your water and hydration regulation. So it got a lot that it does. And it says common symptoms of imbalance include headaches, vision problems, hormonal imbalance, thyroid problems, dehydration, fatigue, high blood pressure. So is there an associated imbalance here that needs to be decoded? I get a no. So now we can start clearing this stuff for you. So we're going to start with that pituitary gland, and I can just kind of reset your pituitary gland for you. So we're just going to reset that and bring it back into complete and total balance and alignment. So just take a nice deep breath in and out. Good. Is that back in alignment? And I get a yes. I always double check. That brings us then to the sacral chakra. Is there another associated imbalance here that needs to be decoded? I'm getting a no. We're just going to go ahead and realign your sacral chakra. And just bring that back into complete and total balance and alignment, taking a nice deep breath in and out. Okay, good. That's now in balance again, which brings us to your amygdala. Is there any other associated imbalance here that needs to be decoded? There's not. So we're just going to realign the amygdala for you, bringing that back into complete and total balance and alignment, taking a nice deep breath in and out. Okay, did that align? Yes. And now I do want to just clear just a few emotions that are there too that are coming up. So first one is stubbornness, a feeling of stubbornness. That's not yours though. That's absorbed from the person that you had the argument with. So we're going to release that stubbornness from you and the person you absorbed it from completely and entirely, just taking a nice deep breath in and out. Okay, any other emotions here that we can clear? Yes. Let's see what else is coming up. Okay, there's also resentment coming up. That's yours. And that is a current feeling of resentment. So we're just going to release out any resentment.
Wow, this is like right on today.
Completely and entirely, taking a nice deep breath in and out. Let's just do one more emotion here that wants to clear. And this is a big one. There's also hatred coming up. That is yours. It's not towards yourself or towards the person, but towards a situation. So that's going on currently. So we're just going to release that hatred out of your body completely and entirely as pure energy back to the earth. Deep breath in. And this one, I want you just to kind of shake it out as you exhale out. Just kind of shake out your hands, your wrists, your whole body. That's a deep one, just releasing out hatred. Good. Did that release? It did. Okay, yeah, so that feels good for a little mini session kind of example of how it works. And that was when you got some body code and emotion code. So yeah, curious how you feel now.
Definitely better. There's a definite like weight lifted. That's really interesting. And even when the first time you moved your hand, like sort of swept your hand over your head, I felt this weird like tingling in my skull. And I don't know. It was a weird feeling. It felt good, but I definitely felt something. There was some sort of sensation that happened, which was,
and that's just the energy, I'm sure, just moving, and that's what's so incredible about doing this over Zoom right now or over the phone. I use like a magnet to do the clearing. And again, I've had that done in person and I've had it done over the phone. It feels exactly the same. That to me is amazing. And a lot of times people say that same thing. They can feel that kind of tingling. So they feel that energy moving. So it's incredible to be able to do this over, Zoom or the phone as well. Yeah, but I'm glad you feel awesome. A little lighter. A lot of people will say that they feel lighter. And then I just always muscle test to see, like usually you have 1 to 4 more days of processing and you have about 2 more days of processing. So you'll probably feel even lighter after that. And then especially when you do body code, there's just stuff going on at such a deep level that's kind of going on for you too, that your body is assimilating. And then I would test too, like, okay, if we did another session, like how long should we, like your body says it would be ready in like 2 weeks to do another session. So that's kind of how I, close it out. And I would just say too, at the end, most people with that processing don't feel anything, but there are a few people, and I think it's like 10% of people, and I'm one of them, that does feel like I tend to get really tired right after a session. Some people get a little more emotional. I find especially people that have usually a hard time expressing emotion tend to get a little more emotional because you're just bringing stuff up that's releasing, and then some people get really wired. Like I have one client that's like always energized afterwards. I'm like, that's amazing. I wish, because I get really tired. So it's just our different ways that our body processes the energy. But then again, normally after that 1 to 4 days, you've completely processed it. And most people feel a pretty big shift, afterwards, if not right away. Like, you already felt some relief right away.
Yeah. And actually, now that I'm kind of thinking about how I feel that you said that, that feeling after you cry, like it's almost a good feeling. I think we get oxytocin or something. I almost feel like I just cried, but I didn't, obviously, because you guys are hearing me. But it's almost that feeling of release. I don't know.
It's really interesting you said that, because I
Yeah.
just had a client tell me that the same exact thing the other day. She's like, I'm not crying, but I'm getting the release that I would get from a good cry, is how she put it. She's like, I feel like that. She's like, I feel like I had this amazing cry without the cry. So
yes.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Who wants to look
Yeah.
ugly? And no, I'm just joking. Crying is
Yeah.
fantastic. I highly recommend it, but it's great. That was awesome. Thank you for doing that. That was really cool. And it's interesting. I do have a sluggish thyroid, and all those sort of emotions that came up really relate. And the fear in the amygdala section was one of the, I would say that was the central feeling that I was feeling that was related to this argument. So it's really interesting that I guess you're like, oh, I'm not surprised, but that's kind of what came up. So really, really cool stuff. And as you can see, it's very relevant to how our nervous system is able to regulate. And it's so essential for our blood sugar. This is not just, and could that, dysregulation of my nervous system, me wanting to seek some sort of peace, be driven out towards emotionally eating, seeking carbohydrates to make some serotonin, or just seeking carbohydrates and sugar because that would calm me, quote unquote, So when that happens, it's like, oh, that can release some of these feelings of wanting to emotionally eat. I could see how this can be so powerful, because I feel like I'm experiencing it literally in real time as we're talking.
Exactly. And I love that, because I do work with a lot of people, like I said, on emotional eating, but other things too, but other addictions too. I have someone that is like with nicotine, and same thing. It's like getting underneath of what's causing that urge, and a lot of times it is just that stress or overwhelm. So even if whatever we can do, to regulate your nervous system and get rid of that stress and overwhelm is going to help. And that's why it helps me so much as a tool for myself. Like, again, I do a lot of other stuff too, but I know if I'm starting to reach for the food, even if it's like food I can technically eat, that usually there was an indicator to me, something emotionally is going on that I need to investigate. And now I have these tools to do it. Where before, that's the biggest difference. Before, I would have just reached right for the food without even thinking twice. And then that just puts a little Band-Aid on it, but then you're still going to, feel it again later. And then a lot of times even deeper, and it's crying out even more. So it's just so nice for me to have a way to just address stuff as it comes up now right away. And that's the thing, like, life's not perfect. So even though I'm in my right size body or whatever, and I don't eat sugar and flour, is my life perfect? No, not even close, because it's still life. But now I feel like I have so many more tools, and I'm a lot more steady dealing with the ups and downs than I was before. I just feel like I come from a much more grounded place now. So it just feels a lot more peaceful than the way I would have reacted to things in the past.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been so insightful, and I love the idea of linking these emotions. I mean, things that have happened to us, talking about emotional eating and talking about doing this work, whether it's the emotion code, like you said, is one tool, or whether it's going to therapy or doing EMDR or some sort of treatment to get these emotions out of your body, to work on yourself, to get in touch with all that granularity of emotion. You said that you can look up the emotion code chart. You can also look up, if you just Google emotions wheel, I'll attach it in the show notes, but get in touch with your emotions, figure out what's happening. And this is a really great place to start, because I think that the more conscious we are of this, the more choice we have. And so if we just find ourselves why am I in the kitchen? Or just we're in the kitchen, our hands down the potato chip bag. It's a really different scenario than if we can catch it. We have that moment of, oh, why am I here? I'm not hungry. Oh, like then we can make the choice. It's not that we're driven. It's the sugar dragon's not controlling us. We're in charge of how we feel and what we put into our body. And I think that control over ourselves, like you were saying in our first episode, that you felt like you were a control freak, quote unquote, but you couldn't control this. Well, this is one of those ways to help you gain better control over your own self and the decisions that you make. And that's super liberating. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. I loved this. Thank you so much for allowing me and for being vulnerable and allowing me to do a little demo on you too, because that definitely takes vulnerability to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And so if someone wants to have a session with you, they're like, I want to do that. I just want to try it. I'm intrigued. Where can they go? Of course, I'll link all this in the show notes, but where can they go
to my
find
website? Unsweetensio.com. And there's a book online option there. You can also reach out to me and send me an email, which is on there too, but it's Siobhan@unsweetensio.com, and just, let me know. But yeah, happy to do a session. And I think, again, you really have to experience it, I think, to really be able to feel what it can do. So
yeah. Thank you so much. And I don't know how to describe it, but I do feel significantly different. It's so weird. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to feel it that much. I probably won't. It's via Zoom or whatever. And it's like, wow, that feels really different. Feels so different.
Yay.
So yeah,
see, it was
so
just
exciting.
An alignment for us to talk today and
yes,
do that. So
it was. Thank you again, Siobhan.
You're welcome. Thank you.